Oh, Crow, it's been ages. I've missed you.
It's been months, hasn't it?
It has. I know you've been busy. And hello, Jason. It's really nice to meet you as well. But I really missed you. Like, you're such a great person. Without bigging you up too much there, but you're such a great person, and I'm just so down to earth. You never mess us about, and you've got masses to say. And it's been months because I wasn't sure if I wanted to come back at the beginning because too much. You know what egos are like, and like when you have a channel taken away, it's horrible.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better. They're looking for full spectrum control. It's just all very weak and desperate, and it's going to come back to haunt them, I imagine, before it's all said and done.
So yeah, anyway, it's really nice that Jason's come on because obviously we talked about you a bit, Jason, but we've never met you before.
Yeah, it's great to be here and meet you guys.
Cool. We don't have to start the thing; it's already recording because obviously I'm not in the room. I leave it on my computer recording, and I'm in the bedroom because I can't. Oh, well, I could sit by it, I suppose, but we're in the icons, aren't we? So. But I can't see it on my phone, which is crazy. But yeah, the whole thing's crazy. And the other channel I've got is crazy as well. But we won't go into that because we're here to listen to you two today.
So what's on the docket for today?
Well, everything you talk about, everybody loves. So whatever you want to talk about, really. I mean, we've never met Jason before. So hello again, Jason.
Hello.
You've heard about us, little fry with the big fish.
I'm not sure that's an honest assessment.
Well, we were nowhere near the size of you as a channel when we started. Now we've lost that one. We've got to start again. And you know what they've done to the
yeah,
the
you can't.
algorithms. It's very hard to get people unless you're lucky
You
and
can't.
someone shares.
No, I pick up 35 to 50 subs a month. They take thousands from me, literally thousands every month. It's not possible to become a channel of my size anymore, unless you're kicking people in the balls or playing with a hula hoop or Barbie or something.
Hmm.
I know, and my other channel as well. I can see, I've got this little saying: "Roses are red, violets are blue." You're like a pane of glass. I can see right through you, and that's what's happened. I mean, I know we know the media is a lie, but it was never the lie I thought it was. I mean, they're just actors. They're just acting. So no one's dying. They're just crisis actors. The whole lot. The DA, the police, the media. They're all actors.
I can see you're working on getting your new channel removed, and I applaud you for it.
Oh, don't say that. I have to act like I'm stupid.
Let me give you a word to the wise. If you address false flags, if you're too vocal about flat Earth, those are two things that are going to get you nailed. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to go use the restroom real quick. Jason can carry, and then we'll jump into this. By the way, I was on Coast to Coast last night, just so you know.
Oh,
Yeah, that was really cool.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, he got to do 2 hours with George Norrie. He did the second half of the show. I recorded it, and I'm gonna chop the commercials out of it so anybody who wants to hear it can hear it. But he did a good job. I have to say, George was very fair to Crow.
The thing is, what it is with like he doesn't go on about it too much, does he, Crow? But he's a kind of flat earther. Well, he understands all that, but because he doesn't sort of marry himself to it, he can go anywhere, can't he? Because look, there's a flat earther coming, or whatever, that kind of thing. He doesn't marry himself to anything. He's Crow, but he always, when he talks, flat earthers go, yeah.
Well, a lot of his work helps to substantiate what the general flat Earth community believes. So that works in the favor there. But there's problems with a lot of models, unfortunately, and I just don't feel we have enough data. Like Crow says, this is something that he and I both totally agree on. Nothing that we have is giving us a map that we really want. We want to know, like, okay, so what is this? And unfortunately, we don't know. All we do know is that there's inconsistencies all over the place.
Well, do you know what it seems to me in this last few months? My reckoning is the sky is convex, the seas are concave, and then we live on these plateaus in the middle. And I thought about it. They never tell us, Jason, that we're living on top of the hills here. They never explain, well, when you're there, you're living on top of the hills. About 10 miles past me, we have to go down this hill. And then all the people down there, which is Devon, Cornwall, Bristol, if you've heard of these places, they all live on a plain down there. And we live on a plain up here.
Over the hills and far away?
But they never say it like that.
Well, when does anybody
What are we
say
living
anything
on?
about
Our
anything?
thing's full of these little plateaus everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the leading theories on how the structure actually is, and I very much want to figure out. I want more data. As a matter of fact, I was chatting with David Weiss and Jaron Campanella yesterday, just a friend chat on Skype, and Jaron and I were both kind of the same mind. Like, we want more data, but how do we get it? Because once you get to so much distance, for instance, if you're trying to figure out some math, it turns out that just the atmosphere interfering is X amount, and it seems to match up with what the mainstream data is, as far as this is as far as you can see with the curve, and then that matches up with the atmosphere. Well, isn't that convenient that they just happen to put out those numbers?
I now have more questions now after doing this for 3 years or whatever it is, 4 years, than I did before I started.
Well, there are tons of questions because we just don't have enough answers.
So we've decided we started off as a square one, but we won't go too much into that. And then if we're not allowed to talk about it quite like that, but we've decided just to go with the people. We're not worried about the size or the shape anymore because who knows? None of us know.
Right. You're not going to just be able to make up a map. But you've already, if you logically break down where this is all gone, you already have answered the big question. Everything you've been told is wrong. So that's the starting point. And that's a much finer place to be than in delusion.
I just think we're now a mixture of flat, concave. The other one, what's the other one?
Convex,
Convex.
hollow.
In different parts of, like, the water can be concave, the sky is convex. It's like it's a mixture of everything. Maybe we're a square, a circle, and a diamond all put together. Who knows anymore? It just seems to be all of it. But we're not
Well, you
spinning.
can
We're not a ball.
no, well, you can address that too just by making the assumption of a plane, and that gets you part way to where you want to be. But the fact is we're just starting out here. So
Yeah, we're at the talking stage. I mean, we're not going to talk about this anymore. We're going to talk to you two in a moment, but we did have a concave discussion last night just because we're just people and we're here to listen now. We've got nowhere. So we're still at the talking stage with everybody. No one can say, yes, it's this or that, or we're not, or that. No one can say it.
let me ask you, how long was your channel removed before you set up the new channel?
Well, this one, the one that this is going on, is a backup one when we got a strike before, because I think it was on a Hangout, so they striked the Hangout, so we had to get a new channel. So it's a backup channel, but it was
Well,
about 3 months. I wasn't sure with all the infighting and people like taking over and taking us that. I wasn't sure about everything, but then it became apparent that some people said they wanted us back. So me and Patricia come on and sit and listen, usually.
Hmm.
how big was the other channel when they took it out?
Oh, about 10,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought, something like that. Yeah, it's terrible, man. 10,000 people having a conversation, and I'm guessing you have no idea what the violation was.
Well, I could have been about one of 10 things. And when I asked them to explain, because I couldn't have done them all, which one I was, they never told me. 25 emails, and I actually went for appeal, and I never heard a word.
Yeah,
Right.
not surprising.
And right
They're
now,
they're
I'm trying to report all these other things. I went to YouTube. I've been reporting it since August. I've had 4 different people who then say, I'm here to help you. If you feel that they're inappropriate, report the videos. And I want to report, it's not just a video I want to report. I want to report what we're in.
Yeah, it's they're at this point I've noticed the nature shows are reflecting what's happening in the world, and in the nature shows they've announced they need to reintroduce fear into ecosystems to get them back into balance. So these are just Tavistokian ideas where they keep you destabilized, they keep you in fear. They so casually cast aside thousands of hours of work in the cases of some people, and it's desperation. And so what it comes down to is, what are we going to do? Is this legitimate? Is this something we'll put up with? For my part, I'm preparing for the day when I never use any Google product. It's why I've set up my site, and that's a shame for a lot of people, because at the same time, to run your own website now, it's not going to be long before just to set up a website is going to be thousands of dollars, and it'll be about like starting a business. And that's how they preclude a lot of people from
I think
starting
that's what
businesses.
they're going to eventually do with YouTube, isn't it? Because they gave out their Hangout, their group Hangout, to another company, and then Patricia was reading about it, and it hasn't got all the functions. And you think, well, we only need to get our icons on there and a volume button, really. That's it. We don't really need much to have group Hangouts. And they haven't put all the functions on, and you know they'll charge you for them.
Of course, everything that you've ever been, the internet is one big loss leader, everything about it. Now, when you put together websites, they're all built on free third-party services, which are all beginning to charge. All the email blasts that used to give you so many free thousands a month, that's all gone. And so everything, even including, it's like television. It's no different than television. If you would have came along in the 70s and said 2 decades from now, people will be paying for bottles of water and television, you'd have been laughed out of the world. And yet that's exactly what happened. And what makes it worse is cable TV is how they opened the door to paying for television. And what they said was, you pay for a subscription for cable television and you won't get commercials. Well, that didn't even last. And so what we're looking at the internet is the exact same thing. Every single service will be for a fee, will be controlled, will be ways to control how humans interact, because the internet has become the new public square.
And they're also pushing onto you what it is they want you to be looking at as well. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you can go on there. Everybody thinks they've got freedom of choice, but you're being thrust with all this stuff. You're being thrust with all these crime cases which aren't real. You're being thrust with it all. And so you're being directed anyway.
Well, you got to push that crap aside. All the world's a stage, and, they're one of the stage managers. And if you are not going to be a higher-minded person and do something about this, then you're going to get what you get. It's that simple. You could learn a lot from nature shows, man. You could learn a lot from nature shows. There is no lie in nature. If you watch what a civilization of deer do in a tough part of the world, you can analogize that all day long to human beings, because we live in the same world. And you can analogize that as the predators in that ecosystem are basically the Googles of the world. The Googles are the predators, the apex predators. And yeah. And so what it comes down to is, in a natural world, the deer don't fall for the nonsense. They just stick to, how do we get along here? Unfortunately, people aren't that bright for the most part. If you offer them a fat enough floaty chair, they're going to be all about it, and they'll give up quite a bit.
Animals are different, aren't they? They don't think like us. They just be.
Well, it doesn't matter, because you're not viewed as a human being by the system we exist in. You are viewed as a non-living entity without breath that's been lost and abandoned at sea. So the point I would make is, even though we all know we're living, breathing human beings, the legal system does not recognize you as such. So basically, if you try to argue you're better than an animal under those conditions, what are you really saying? An animal actually has breath and is recognized as having breath.
Yes, I agree with you on that one. Once you know more of the truth, it just does. It's
all fictions, that's the thing. And this whole game is about the human mind. The entirety of this game is what you can convince the human mind. And
I think we're just one big experiment, to be honest.
Yeah, yes and no. I would not be surprised to learn that there's already been a run at world domination in the way we see it coming, and they failed, and that this is another run. Who knows? Maybe Atlantis was real. And those myths that we get, there's something to them. These are impossible things to prove out either way. But what it comes down to is, either you start acting like a human being, or you're going to get treated like an animal. And to act like a human being is far different than, human beings act in a couple ways, and this is provable. As groups, we act in one way. As individuals, we act in another. But online, we're all groups. People to this day come to my Twitter channel and always comment, "Oh, look at Crow, he's not following anyone." And that's like upsetting to them. But that's my point. I don't need to follow anyone. Why do I need to follow? Why do I need to spend my life trying to weed out what other people are spewing? Because that's what it becomes. It becomes day after day of, is this true? Oh, wait a minute, here comes some more. Is this true? Is this true? Is this, it's a never ending data dump. And I don't need it. And I will never need it. So what I do is I go after the things that I can figure out on my own and try to make sense of. But the online training that we've all got has dumbed us down a good bit for now.
Yes, I kind of agree with you with that, but my other channel is trying to show everybody what they're doing to us, so I do watch it. But I haven't got the television on, the live vision.
That's for sure.
But just
Well,
back to the bit. How long have you and Jason been together then now, as doing your podcasts and stuff?
I think
3.5.
Yeah, something like that. I'm pushing up to 4 years, something like
Yeah.
that.
And we're up to 180 some episodes. And I was only not on the first like 24 or so.
Yeah, I think it was in
Amazing.
the 20s, like 24 or something like that, Jason.
Yeah, in that ballpark. I came on a few of them in between before I was full time, and then.
Well, you were on one of the early ones, like 3 or 4 too.
Yeah.
Well, you obviously are a good pairing, aren't you? You obviously get on really well as well. That's half the point. Like me and Patricia, we get on really well.
Yeah, well, we kind of research in a similar fashion, and we come to the same conclusion. So obviously, one of us isn't totally looking in a different direction than the other. I think our approach to the way we speak and present things is a little different, but I think that's where the chemistry is.
Yeah, Jason's a lot more polite than I am.
Usually, every now and then on TFR, I'll say a humdinger.
Also, Patricia's quieter than me. I'm the noisier one. I'm the noisier one of the two.
Apparently, she's not going to answer to that.
Yeah, are you guys still getting your regular crowd together regularly?
Well, we only started again a little while ago, and then I started putting the videos on because obviously there's no live hangouts now. But now we're starting to premiere them, and slowly the group's going up. But this way it's slow, isn't it? Because they don't. Well, it's like they've got a pause button on top of the channel.
Well, they do. You're never going to be able to grow as we once did. It's the algorithms have been put in, the shadow banning's in place. The moment that they deleted your channel, the name Sun and Moon Family United was scrubbed internet wide. There's an algorithm now that informs the systems that you were deleted for a made up nonsensical reason that nobody cares to define, because they're just basically bullying everybody for the sake of controlling a narrative of common sense, by the way, because human beings have every right to question where they exist.
I do know what you mean. When I sign on to the channel, it says this channel doesn't exist. But when I get there, then I go to my admin panel, so I know I'm not in the algorithms on any of the channels.
Well, you're a known quantity. As soon as they started screwing with your first channel and you did the backup, it didn't matter. And when they took me out, I had 100,000+ people, but a search for me at that point would bring 16 to 20 million returns. After they brought my channel back because so many people complained, it went down to about 6,000 returns. It was a total shadow banning scrub. It's like a DNS scrub for a website.
I think it's really terrible, but Patricia will tell you, unfortunately, we sign up to it, and we sort of, if you want to sort of be on their platform, you sort of got to do as you're told.
I beg to differ. For some entity to so casually cast aside thousands of hours of work when they encouraged everyone to do the work to build the channels and then to hit the brakes and reverse it, that's not defensible. I don't give a damn what they think is in their agreement. By the way, to enter an agreement implies that there's been a meeting of the minds to make a contract, and I defy anyone to read that damn multi-page agreement and understand it in its entirety. I'm not a stupid person.
You can't understand any of it.
So how have we entered into an agreement if we can't understand what the agreement is?
And do you know what's really annoying? So we sign up today and the law means one thing, your videos are fine, and then next week I'll change the law, your videos aren't fine, they get deleted or blocked. They can change it whenever
people started catching on. They've got a lie to protect, don't they? It's called mainstream media. There's a push in the world that everything's going to be different now. Everything's going to be digital. Everything's going to be 5G. What can be talked about is going to be controlled by corporations. Everything's different now. You see, when we first started using these products, there was a true exchange of knowledge. And look what it did. people started to question the very place they live called the earth. Not only that, they began to challenge all kinds of narratives because they didn't hold water. There was a hole in the bucket and everyone saw it. And that became the problem. That hole in the bucket we're all talking about, according to some corporations, you're not allowed to talk about. And I beg to differ. We have the rights of living human beings, whether the system wants to recognize us as such or not. And if enough people take this mindset...
and this has all happened because they've lied to us, not because we're being wacky. They've completely lied to us, and a lot of us can see it.
Well, it's a bit of both. See, this is the problem. Yeah, it's unfortunate what the big boys are doing, but we take the blame too. We were ignorant. We were not conducting ourselves like adults, because if we were, we wouldn't have been so fooled. So now that we're starting to recognize that fact, you can't just say it's all on them. At least half of this is on us for acting like children.
What, you mean if we take responsibility for ourselves, you mean?
Well, for swallowing anything, it's like walking in a place you've never been and all these people give you food and say, here, there's good food, swallow it. Is that what you do? Or do you say, wait a minute, what am I swallowing? Well, apparently we've lived for many decades in this country swallowing whatever the hell we were handed. And that's not what an adult human being does. So we have culpability in this, and anyone who tells you differently is woefully mistaken. Yeah, it sucks what these big corporations are doing, but look at your damn self in the mirror. How did we get to that place? We got to that place by sleepwalking, basically. And as we came out of that sleepwalk, we began to realize all these things. But the point I'm making is, yeah, it's wrong what's being done by these powerful players. But if you don't examine how we got here and recognize that we all helped get here, then that's equally a problem.
They also built up the cult of science.
Our power away. We've given our power away. That's what we've done.
Right. Exactly right. Not only have we given our power away, we've believed in things that are unbelievable. As a flat earth person, you know this firsthand because you used to accept that you were spinning on a ball. And when you began to logically work out that this is the most non-common sense thing you could accept, it starts to show what I'm talking about. So what we did basically was when we were young, we just absorbed everything. And so you get a pass maybe because you're young, but at a certain point, usually called the age of consent, you don't get a pass anymore when you become an adult. And that's unfortunate too. You know, we have Jewish people, they're told at 13, you're not a kid anymore. That's really one of the last Western cultures that tells their children, you're growing up now. Set aside your child. The rest of us, we lost all that. So half of our culture makes it into their 30s. And you could ask, like, I'm a prime example. I don't think I even started to question whether I felt grown up until I was well into my 30s. How in the hell can you be a 30-year-old man and not understand you're grown up? There's the problem. So, yeah, it sucks what's been done to us, but if we don't take our bit of the responsibility, how's it ever going to get better?
This is why we love you, Crow.
I'm just saying, where an adult human being challenges things if you want to be considered different than an animal, then act different than an animal. And acting different than an animal is primarily freedom of choice, and secondarily, the ability to use your brain in a way animals can't. And what that comes down to is logically assessing the world around you and everything presented in front of you. And we haven't done these things for 2-3 generations very much.
And the other thing that's happened is that people don't care anymore.
Well, yes and no. I think a lot of people are fluoridated out of their minds, but I think we might be surprised. You know, we don't control the information system, so it's hidden from us how many people are discontented and find themselves where we have found ourselves. And I think that the ramping up of censorship and the ramping up of fear in the society that we exist in the Western world is all proof of what I'm saying. Because if there wasn't a lot of us, why would you need to do all that? It's like looking at the world logically and saying, you know, if there was plenty of violence in the world, you wouldn't need to make any more up, would you? So that tells you something critically important about our world. Look at all the violence that's made up out of thin air. And so what does that logically tells you? It logically tells you that the world is way more peaceful than you've ever been led to believe. And when you logically work these things out, you can feel better about certain
Oh
things.
yeah, I totally agree with you on that. They're trying to make us look like we're a bunch of animals that are killing each other 900,000 times a day. But I don't think that's happening, because you go into your town, do you see anybody fighting? No. Do you go to your town, my town? No. None of this is happening. They've just lied to us. They're making it look like we're fighting and killing each other and all that. But no, it's not happening. We're peaceful.
That's kind of the old Bill
Generally.
Hicks joke he used to make, where he's going on about CNN with all the horrible things that they're trying to shove at you, and then you look out your window and there's nothing but crickets chirping. Where is this stuff going on?
Mm. But they're trying to make everybody believe that's what's happening, but it isn't. And it's just, I think it's cruel. It's just so cruel, because all it's breeding is this very narcissistic society, and most people look like zombies out there.
Yeah, that they do. There's also you got to look at things like in the military, how a lot of people won't even shoot another person. That's why they have to train them, because a lot of people don't want to point a gun directly at somebody, even when they've got a clean shot, and pull that trigger. They don't want to do it. I'm sure Crow can comment on that, how they have to get people programmed in basic training to be able to kill another human being.
Well, you'll notice that there are vast differences in how we go into conflict in the world, and it's generally old white guys that take us into the conflict, and generally young men who go deal with the conflict. And at no time will you ever see the old guys who started the conflict become directly involved in the conflict. And so that tells you certainly that there's two different things going on there. And for the younger people to be involved in the conflict when they have no dog in the fight, it shows the programming outright. Why would anyone go risk their well-being or risk, infringing on someone else's well-being when they have nothing to gain out of the whole thing? That's the ultimate programming. And in this case, young men are known to be wild, and so they leverage on that, but there's much more to it. And so on the face of it, it's pretty self-evident. But I served during the first Gulf War, and I can tell you there is no better way to describe the area a war takes place than calling it what it is called, the theater of war, because that's exactly what it is. But it does not diminish the fact that there's these old dudes who start the crap and these young guys who come in and deal with it. And that should tell everybody a lot.
Also, don't forget, they're making everybody believe that we're in a democratic society, but we're not. You know what I mean? Like, everybody doesn't understand that we're not. There's no democracy. Because if there was, YouTube and other things wouldn't be like this. So slipping it all in and nobody's taking any notice.
Well, their excuse is that it's a private corporation, so you don't have any rights. But I think we need to update some things in our world, where the internet is one of the most important things in our existence, at least as far as a Western society is concerned. And companies cannot be allowed to just do whatever they want when you're talking about our capability to have mass communications across the world.
Right, it's the new public forum. So this was all put together on a loophole. Basically, everyone thinks, well, you guys are in the UK, I don't know what you think. Here in America, everyone thinks they have freedom of speech protected, when in fact, the only laws they've ever seen about freedom of speech say the government cannot infringe. Well, Google or YouTube or Facebook, they're not the government, so they can infringe all day long. As a matter of fact, there's precedent for employers. Those are corporations. Your employer can tell you, you're on my clock right now, you can't talk about that. There, you've just had your free speech abridged by a corporation, and that's been held up in court. But it doesn't diminish the fact that what's being ignored here is that what was called the city square or the public forum is now online. That's what's being ignored. This is the public forum now. And so what's happened is they've slyly substituted one boss for a new boss, and other things have gone on that are completely indefensible, like the United States government telling Facebook to engage in censorship. That is a one-to-one violation of actual rules we do have on the book. But we've come to a point where if you're powerful enough, you'll do what you want. And, this has a shelf life. It's one thing that alchemy teaches us. Every created thing will see its end. So regardless of whether we all lose what we would like to see happen and big corporations win it all, that's temporary, man. everything in this world is temporary. So at the end of the day, you could look at it that way too. The problem is that so many people get disheartened and they don't use their logical mind anymore, and they get upset and they let emotion drive it all, which is understandable to a degree. You lose a big channel that you've got thousands of hours in. Yeah, man, people get upset, but you need to reach down, grab your bootstraps, pull it back together, and let you know. When they took down my channel, everybody was telling me you got to make a backup channel. I said, the hell I will. Why would I ever spend thousands and thousands of hours to have it taken away without reason and then go set up? You know, it's like building a house that gets burned down and then building another house in the same fire area. Why would you do a thing like that? And in my case,
you got your channel back, didn't you?
Well, we think enough people complained, but what I was gonna say earlier when I asked you is if you had not set up a back channel and just sat on it, it's possible your channel would have come back too. I think a big part of the channel removal is just the scrub that follows for search returns after. And you know, we're all hosts now. It's not possible for a grassroots channel like mine was to build what I built now. Unless you're pre-approved, unless you're talking about something that the powers that be are totally okay with. And even then, you're going to be limited in a way you didn't used to be. It's control. It's control of communication. It's control of ideas.
They brought this restriction thing in, I think it was the end of May. So if they don't like something on your channel, they just put inappropriate. So you can still put it out, but you're penalized.
Right. I have a feeling all this is going to come back. This is going to be looked back at sometime in the future with a level of shame that is unprecedented. And it won't just be for the corporations that did it. We're supposed to have governments that care about people, which for most parts of the world, we don't have that. We have governments that are in bed with the corporations that are corporations themselves. Yeah, but even if we fail wholeheartedly at undoing this mess that we've entered into, there will be a time in the future when they look back and this will be the shameful example. In the same way slavery or the way the Indians in America were treated or the way the Aborigines in Australia were treated, it's going to be shame on a level like that. The problem is the people who did that to Aborigines, and they don't really give a damn, do they? That what they did is shameful and recognized as such. But you see, for the rest of the world, they recognize the shameful nature of that. There will be a time when what has happened here and this push for domination on a worldwide level, the things they did to get there and the way they treated humanity, it's going to be looked at as a low point in world history.
Well, in a sense, you know, eBay and YouTube were started because of the people. You know, they were the people things. And now all they've done is basically get out of the way. Big businesses come, big adverts, big promotion.
Let me try to modify that point of view. The entire internet bubble, which everyone thought was one thing, was actually weeding out competition. See, online, there can only be one Amazon. There can only be one Google. There can only be one Apple. There can only be one Microsoft. And there is slight overlap here and there, but there is very little competition. The internet bubble ensured this. And what you see in places like eBay is at first, everybody still had freedom and normalcy in their mind, so they had to operate accordingly. What most people don't know is founders of eBay are the people who started YouTube. So how is that possible? And then what most people don't know is the biggest purchase to date, I think it was 2006, was $1.6 billion or $1.4 billion. I forget, one of the biggest purchases of all time to buy YouTube, which was completely unprofitable for some time to come. They ate the serving costs. They ate every bit of cost, and that is not an insignificant. I mean, to this day, if I want to serve video, I can't afford it. So what was going on there? It was all the long game. It was all planned out. It was all known. Maybe things happened along the way that weren't expected, like how quickly people caught on to nonsense. That could be possible. But at the end of the day, to consider that somehow this started out as a friendly handshake is an incorrect assessment.
Let's be specific about the whole media server kind of thing, too. They intentionally priced that out of your capability to be able to do it effectively.
Right. So right now, the average person cannot afford to serve video without using a YouTube-like service because of the cost of serving video, because the artificial nature the bandwidth is. But somehow Google manages to pay for it, right? And they don't just pay for it for one country; they pay for it for every country that's using their services. Can
A
you
lot of
imagine
people don't
the
even realise YouTube is owned by Google.
who is owned by Alphabet? Um, we're in a new era here. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, which will be digital, and it will be rolled out for full control using technology, because everything is going to be technology. Soon money will be technology. Everything will be technology. There are endless people that are about to lose their jobs because automation will ensure that happens. And it's all going to roll out of China because it was set up so that these ideas would be implemented in a communist nation, which is now a dictatorship. So I don't know what to call it. And, you know, they're porting it from there to here. And everything that went on in China came from Silicon Valley. And in the summer of 1997 at a freaking summer picnic, believe it or not. These are the times we live in. But at the end of the day, I can't stress enough. You know,
What? Wake up,
I point.
everybody.
Well, no, you see, people think there's some need for a revolution and all this other nonsense. I'm not down with violence. Violence is wrong, and you know, you can't defend the idea of these things. So I'm not down with what people say about that. But what you got to realize is, if you look at nature, look at the deer. I'm always harping on the deer because I study them. The Sika deer in Hokkaido, Japan, are in one of the gnarliest winter zones there are. They're going to have precious few warm months, like 3 or 4 maybe, and then they're into it. And all the female deer go into that winter pregnant. How hard is that? All the males have to fight damn near to the death to determine who's the toughest, because we need the toughest to procreate and ensure survival. So when you know this about nature, and then you take a look at what we've been doing as human beings in the West, fat, dumb, and happy, sitting in our floaty chairs, you can start to realize the argument from the other side, where you could imagine someone in their ivory tower saying, why do you think you even deserve to be here? What have you done? How are you fit to be the next generation? And while I don't agree that someone has that right, the point is that nature shows us that's how this world works. And so you can come back and argue and say, well, we're not animals. And I would agree with that too. But nonetheless, we've already pointed out that the legal system does not view you as a living, breathing human being. They view you as abandoned at sea, dead at birth.
It's not good to start with then, is it?
Well, it's our own fault. One of the most powerful, there's 2 very powerful instruments in this artificial kind
The
of corporate.
1960s, I reckon they changed masses of stuff. In the 60s, they were changing it all while we were watching the westerns and the war movies.
I think it started in earnest in 1933 on the tail of the stock market crash.
Right.
But you know, the 2 very powerful things in the system we live in is the offer and the claim. And as far as I know, as far as I can tell now, there's nothing more powerful than having a claim. And these claims are used all the time, and so are the offers. And you are given endless offers in a week that you don't even understand are offers, and you accept, never having understood that an offer was made. And once you've accepted an offer, now people can make claims against you. And the fact, you know, there's so many things. And it's just, all these things were done outside of our knowledge, but I think you can make the argument that if we were acting like adults, we would have been asking more questions. Like when the New Deal came to be in 33, why didn't that generation, the greatest generation, say, wait a minute, what's really going on here? Or when children were no longer registered at birth in a Bible and a birth certificate was needed, why didn't people ask better questions? We can't know those things now, but we can certainly understand how we got here, because people didn't ask questions. They didn't look carefully at what was going on. And the reason they didn't...
They put us in a boot camp, but they've just forgotten to tell us.
Well, that's where we're getting to be now, kind of. But you see, even that, I mean, most people are pissed off about a social media channel they run. And so that seems pretty infantile on the face of it, but it doesn't excuse the fact that that's the new social forum. It's where people communicate now.
But that's the good thing about you and Jason, isn't it? Because people can listen to what's going on through YouTube as well. You do a lot of information. You talk about a lot of things, don't you?
To some degree. It's not always easy, and if things continue on the track they are and get significantly further than they are, then these things will not be easy for anyone to do. Um, we'll just have to wait and see. But you see, if you act reasonably as a human being, you don't infringe on other human beings, you don't intentionally pick fights or be rude, you conduct yourself above board, that's much harder to push around.
Yeah,
And
respect.
I'm
Respect.
proof of
There's
it.
not enough respect anymore. Not for individuals as human beings. There's no respect. No one cares. Not saying you. I'm just saying generally. People don't care, and there's no respect.
If someone went and got your entire internet history right now and put it before you, how much of it would you be regretful of? You see, that's what I'm talking about. My entirety of my time spent on the internet, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a single curse word. There might have been an occasion way the heck back when I argued with someone, but that went away very quickly because I understood this is going in a database somewhere. Um, I was digital. I was working in the internet startup, and I realized in 2013 I wrote the about page for my website, and that is entirely about freedom. It was self-evident where this was going to go from my point of view. But my point is if you conduct yourself above board, it becomes much harder to push that around. When someone's complete history is laid out and there's all these shameful things that someone might be embarrassed of, it's much easier to say, look at this jackass. If those elements of that history are not present, you have a much stronger argument to make that you shouldn't be treated in some unacceptable manner.
I agree with you on that one. Me and Patricia are not the swearing types. We don't feel you need to do that, and we're trying to build a community or a place where people can come and talk. So we don't want egos and stuff like that. And I think you two are very similar like that, aren't you? This ego thing, which is another
Well,
thing that's being built
well,
up
that's the
lately.
whole reason for Crow is to try to force separation between the ego birth identity, the egotistical person, the let go of my ego person, and just some entity that is not a corporation called Crow. Um, that's the whole point of all that, really, is to,
And you
you
also
know,
do your podcast, don't you? Which they're yours. They don't belong, or they're not. I know you put them on YouTube, but they're yours first. You can put them wherever you want.
well, right. I do run a website. And the other day, my wife was talking, what kind of a legacy will you leave? And I said, well, technically, if you think about it, Crow is not my corporate birth name that the world identifies with, so no legacy, technically. If people look at me in the world, they will think that I am my birth name. And so what Crow has done is not attributable to that for the most part. And therein lies the kind of rub of the world. You see, from the world's point of view, as I'm speaking to you now, I am Crow from the tribe Crow. I am not a legal fiction. I'm a living man. But I can't say that for the birth person, who was named as a baby with three, a first, a middle, and last name. That is a fictitious entity. That is a legal fiction. That is something with personhood. Crow is not that. So technically, if you were to look at any kind of a legacy that I might leave, it will never be attributed to who the world would consider the real me.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, we get that. That's partly to do with that silly old birth certificate, isn't it?
Well, at that point, it becomes the only thing that really matters is what you're discussing, the point you're trying to identify. That's where the importance lies. And in one way, it's an ironclad way of keeping your ego the hell out of it, because your ego, as a human being, wants you to be famous, wants you to be popular. How do people perceive me? Do they think I'm handsome? Am I too fat? All these silly, pointless, nonsensical things that the ego forces you to defend. And when you get to that point, you can't even admit, I know it firsthand. When I self-reflected, there were all kinds of things I didn't even want to admit to myself. So in a way, this has worked out nicely because it takes all that away. I don't have to worry about those things.
Hmm.
It's kind of like putting on a superhero costume.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like taking I kind of view it the opposite. It's like taking off the superhero the personhood costume. It's like taking off the costume everyone is wearing and becoming what's beneath the costume, which the world will not recognize for the most part. So in a way, yeah. But you see, it is that though, Jason. I get what you're saying, because then all this legend builds up. Like the lunar wave is a prime example. Like I was on Coast to Coast last night, and George Norris said, "Oh yeah, I remember back in so many years ago, someone saw something in front of the moon, and there was this. That was you, right?" This whole legend, this mythos, this grand illusion where Crow looks like Tom Selleck and he can kick anyone's ass. Nice, just some old fat guy, basically.
What? To people, both of you are legends, aren't you? To a lot of people who come and listen to your podcasts.
But really, what is legendary? What we're talking about, or us? If you logically work at what we're doing, what we're doing is not even original. If you want to be honest about it, we're trying to bring common sense to bear, which isn't brand new. We did not invent common sense, so it's just kind of fallen out of favor. So the truth of it is, that's what we're talking about. It gets this everyone's egos push things in crazy directions, and the truth of it is if we say something that matters, shouldn't that really be the thing that matters, not who said it? It's like the whole Renaissance idea. I've said this over and over, and in one way the Renaissance is the flip point to hypermaterialism. You see, in the Renaissance, they're pretty much engaged in this art that was going to make that period famous. All of a sudden, these people are making this great, but it's really not true, because what they were doing was replicating art from an older time. The only difference is the art they were replicating, the art and what the art meant and what it encoded was the important thing. There was no artist signature on that old Greek art that got replicated endlessly. By the time you get up to the Renaissance, now there's going to be some rock stars that make the art. See, that's really the flip point. So which one of those worlds would you rather live in? Where the dude who carved that statue is the important rock star, or the message within that art is what matters? For me, I'd rather live in a world where the art is carrying an important message, and that's what matters. And it doesn't make a damn bit of difference who carved it. See, that's what I'm going for.
Yes, I understand that.
It's hypermaterialism. It's the idea of a rock star.
We don't even now know whether our past is correct. That's a lie. It looks like they were more advanced in the past than we are now. We think we're advanced now, but we weren't. We were more advanced with different technology. And so it's a bit of a strange thing when when you learn all this stuff, isn't it? It sort of changes everything.
Yeah, we've fallen. And that's part of it. For us that grew up in America, when I was young, America was the greatest thing in the world. Everybody in the whole world wanted to be American, and there was nothing America could do that wasn't great. Now look at us. Boy, how that worm has turned. Now
we're looked down upon the laughingstock of the world.
And that's just about perception. That's just about media. That's just, look at World War II is what started the whole America thing. There was a predecessor, but, oh, look, the hero America swept in and saved everybody in World War II. Well, we were in the theater of war. All the world's a stage, baby. And we all keep falling for it over and over and over.
But that is partly your heroes because you've done masses of your own research, and that's what people don't do. They take it for granted. They just watch the television. Oh, it's real because I saw it on there. And it's only when you start doing your own research you realise, it's not like I thought it was. Maybe carry on, Jason.
Well, don't take our word for it either. Yes, we're proud of the fact we have a great reputation for doing our best to present material, but we're just as fallible as anyone else. So trust but verify might be a good way of saying it.
If you can poke a hole in it, you probably shouldn't accept it.
But there's a lot less people doing that now, isn't it? Because we're the alternative.
Well,
not necessarily.
Yeah, these are mindsets. You know, I went on Coast to Coast, and the first thing he wanted to do was establish him as a conspiracy theory. So I kicked that in the butt. I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I use logic. I use reason. I do research. And it takes the wind out of their sail because I'm going to stand up behind that. And if you want to face me down, I'll prove to you that what I just said is true. So if you want to try to belittle ideas with alternative and all these stupid monikers, it's done endlessly about everything. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about a new law. I just haven't kind of worked it all the way out. But basically the gist of it is once a thing becomes arguable, it's no longer true. And the proof of that is in nature. But how I just said it is not quite right yet because it's fallible in how it's delivered. But I'll get there. And these are important ideas. When you go out into the world and you look up and you see that the sky is blue and that the ocean is blue, no one can argue these things. And there is the no lie in nature. No one can come argue about whether the sky is blue. That is truth above all discrimination. And yet everything that human beings deal with right now is arguable. Well, I'm Republican and you're a Democrat and this and that, and da 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 da, just endlessly arguing. And everything goes to a lawyer. What's a lawyer do? He argues. And what's a judge do? He judges. F all that. The fact that anything goes through that system proves that it's false on the face of it, because the outcome of those things will be on the strength of the strongest argument, or the fear that can be brought to bear, or the power in a man we call a judge who arbitrarily decides one way or the other, or isn't quite sure which way to go, so he does the best he can. That is not truth. Truth is walk the hell outside, look up, and understand to the core of your being that the sky is blue. And these are the things we've lost. And these are the things we've lost because we've been separated from nature. When you become separated from nature, you lose survival instinct. You lose common sense. You lose so much in this world. And yet the entirety of our existence right now is predicated on artificial technical systems. And even before the technical got here, it was still artificial systems and things like corporation and law and lawyer and all these things that have built up around us. They have left common sense far behind.
I agree with you on that one. Totally. Obviously, you feel very much the same, Jason.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm just kind of curious. I know you guys look up to us in a respectful sort of way, which is wonderful. Is there anything about what we do that we could help you to understand better? Like
Well,
I see a lot of people bringing things up on our Facebook group, for instance. They're always asking us questions and things like that. And I know we're kind of having a free-form conversation here, but is there anything in particular you'd want us to address that we can clarify for you better?
well, I'm just, personally, for me, I'm just appreciative that you put the information out there. I'm very appreciative that you take the time on your podcast to go through a certain subject and talk about it, and talk about it in depth and in detail, which and communicate, which is the things that are missing.
Yeah, you know, the real truth of it is any number of people could do what Jason and I are doing on a level with simply two ingredients. Treating other human beings with respect and using common sense at the foundation of everything. Primarily
You
the
also have a
main
very good way of putting things, don't you? Because some people can talk and are orators, and some people aren't, and you both
it
are
helps.
very
Yeah,
good at
there's no lie in that. My father taught me how to speak. So there's no lie in that, and that it is a benefit. And not everybody can do it, but my point is the main ingredient missing most of the time is the lack of respect and the lack of common sense. And if you just get those two ingredients and bring them back, whatever you're doing is going to be so much better the moment those two things are added back in.
And not just that, some people on my channel who I've become friendly with on the other channel as well, they wouldn't do what I do. They wouldn't put themselves out, make videos, people can hear you talking, people then say things about you, good and bad, but they can't do that. You can do that. A lot of
Well,
people
these are
can't go on
that's
the internet.
You see, that's the thing about being an individual is we all have our things that we're good at that we can bring to the table. And some people don't want to be the center of attention because that's not their strength. But these people do have strengths they can bring to the table. Everybody does. And so, you know, being the person up front, it's not always all it's cracked up to be. Most people have a difficult time with it because, of course, people are going to say negative things. And for my part, I just don't care. I don't read it. I don't respond to it. If I see it and it's rude, I just delete it. That's how I deal with it. I literally don't bat an eye because I've learned that's not what I'm going to engage in. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to try to bring respect to the table and common sense. And argument is neither of those things. But to make a fine point is if a person is bright and has ideas, but they don't want to be out front, they can still participate in the things that are done. They're just not the main face on it. Everybody in the world, with very few exceptions, has unique abilities to bring in the world. And if that wasn't true, then human beings wouldn't exist. Let me put it this way. If the news was true, human beings couldn't possibly exist because we'd have killed each other a long time ago.
But the bit I hate is the fact that the people don't realise that they're deceived or don't know that they don't know that they don't know.
Well, that's a lot of that comes back to ego too, because people don't want to let go of the safety of the world they think they know, and even inside when they know better, they don't want to go there for fear. You know, religions in the old Eastern traditions out of India and into Buddhism. I heard a master meditator trying to describe to a new meditator why it was important to start by counting your breaths. And I'll never forget what he said. It resonated with me to a point where I wish everyone could have understood at the level I did. The guy's saying, well, wait a minute. So I just start by walking around all day counting my breaths. And in the Buddhist tradition, one way to focus your mind on that is when you breathe in, you say boo. When you breathe out, you say duh. There's other traditions where you don't say Buddha, but you basically are just focusing on the breath. The purpose, according to the master meditator that was describing to the novice, was that what you need to do is get rid of panic. You need to calm the panic in your mind. And I thought right there, man, that is such an important concept because first of all, the person he's talking to doesn't even understand that his mind is in a panic, has never realized that his mind is in fact in a panic, that most of us, our minds, we build these facades. You know, Freud and Jung called them the id, the super id, all these things. But what they showed was that a baby is just a baby to a certain point. They'll walk around naked. They're not conscious that they're naked because they don't have that false need to protect themselves from the world, that false facade. But at some point, they become aware that they're naked, and then they need to cover up. Well, you've started to create your ego, your id, these other ideas. And this is exactly what fosters what that monk was talking about. Very few people are aware that every time you take a breath during a day, typically the human mind starts thinking about something different. Okay, I'm thinking about hot dogs. I took a breath. Now I'm thinking about trains. Now I'm thinking about where I'm going to eat. Think about it. Next time you have a moment, you pay attention to how your mind works, and you will realize it is true. Every time you take a breath, then do a very simple thing. Decide to yourself that for 1 minute you're going to think of nothing, and I'll be willing to bet you cannot do it. For a single minute, you cannot grab control of your mind to think of nothing, and that's where meditation came in. And it used to be common in all religious traditions, including Christianity. That was the monk in his cell who took the vow of silence. That was the monk in his cell meditating on the word of God. That's what it was all about, was to tame and take control of the mind. And so if people could understand what that master meditator told that novice about ending the panic in your mind, man, this world would be a different place. And now that gives new light to what the news is doing. While the master meditator is trying to cure the panic, the news is trying to flame the panic.
But that's what they want. They want the human race in a state of anxiety.
That's right. They want to increase the panic, where every religious tradition that came before in the older times was the exact opposite. It was about imbuing respect for living things and other human beings and quelling the mind and quelling the panic and the fear and all the roots of all these problems we have, anger being one of those things. And so what we see the news doing is, just as you said, the exact opposite. They're pouring gas on the fire, and they're doing it on purpose.
Yes, they do that for sure, which I've definitely noticed with my other channel, but I didn't realize it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what they're doing to us. People don't realize that that's what's happening, that they're being bombarded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they go near anything that's got a screen and is playing a video, I'm not saying that we're not there helping to tell the truth. I just mean generally the adverts, the TV programs, all that is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, lying to you, etc., etc. It's just horrible, and people don't know. They think it's real.
Unhelpful. Yep, it's unhelpful for sure. But I think there's a lot more of us out there that have kind of caught on. So I think that the desperation, a lot of people, is artificial. If they realized, that there were so many other people catching on, they might not feel so desperate. But even in feeling desperate, you're not doing yourself a service. If you can't keep a level head and logically work out what to do, then you're not going to be helpful. If you get emotional, or you get knee-jerk, or you get mad because Google did this to you, or you become less helpful. And that's why they do. That's the whole instability idea. Jerk them this way, jerk them that way, let them have some normalcy. Now jerk them around again. Make sure that they understand that there's not going to be any normalcy in this life that they can count on. That's how it works. We covered that's one of the most basic tenets of the Tavistock ideas. To keep people off guard, off level. It's how brainwashing works. It's a similar idea. So if you can just
I think that's it. You've hit it on the head. We're actually being brainwashed.
Well, again, you can point the finger all you want, but until you look at yourself and take the part of that responsibility that you deserve, you're probably not going to get out from under it. Because this is not wholly on some external force. It's like I say all the time, worst things ever happened to me in my life, I did to myself. This is a little bit different because we do have these big bully corporations doing what they're doing. But nonetheless, I didn't have to agree to these things. I didn't have to accept the offers. I didn't, there's many things that could have been done differently.
Can I just say something?
Certainly.
Go.
Ooh. Hi, guys, first of all.
Hi, Patricia.
Something happened to me today, and there was a point in the conversation where I said, I know you deal with the facts of the matter, but I'm emotional because this is impacting on my life, and this is exactly what they're doing. Whoever it is, governments, whatever, they're saying, we deal in facts, we don't want you to get emotional, but at the same time, they're creating all these things that we do get emotional about. And I've said to people in the past, if you've got someone that's a bit toxic in your life, if you didn't have feelings for them, whatever feelings it is, you'd be able to say, bye-bye, I don't really need you. And it's not being horrible. You have to protect yourself. If we could get rid of feelings, in a way, the world would be a little bit better. But I can undo what I... Sorry?
Well, it's surprising that you recognize that, because most people see other aspects of those in charge and see the lack of emotion as cold-blooded. But the truth is, to go back to the master meditator, in meditation, in Buddhism, in the old Indian traditions, in the Chinese traditions, when you start to elevate on that spiritual path, the first thing that gets laid by the wayside is emotion. And the reason for it is it's the ambulance driver's analogy. So the ambulance driver comes up on a horrible crash, people are hurt, and he's got two choices. He can wig out and be not that much help, or he can pull it together, cast emotion aside, and do what needs to be done. There's the difference. There's the analogy. And people are emotional, and you don't want to remove emotion totally from human beings. But in the case of making decisions, you don't want to do that from an emotional place. You just don't, because you're going to do a better job and logically work out what's best if you can focus your mind on that alone and not be upset or hurt or whatever it might be, because that infringes. And again, that's what the news is about. What do you think what do you think the idea of, like, we always use the analogy, they kick a puppy to make everybody mad and cry, and then when that doesn't work, they fill a stadium with puppies and they burn the stadium, and then when that doesn't work, they do something other severe, and all that's designed to do is elicit emotions because it makes you controllable, basically.
Yes, it's all about control, isn't it?
On both sides, how we control ourselves and how we are
One
controlled.
thing when you were talking about that, like Patricia's saying, they've made sure that you say taking responsibility for yourself, but it starts with knowing who you are as a person and working yourself out. When you do that, you can look at other stuff and work it out. If you don't know who you are, you're never going to believe or trust anything. But that's where they've got many people. Nobody looks at themselves. Nobody knows who they are. They just react. And they don't put together, oh, look, I'm in a pattern now. Oh, look, I keep doing these things. Or, yes, that's me. They don't even recognize any. They don't even know who they are. That's the problem, I think, today as well. As a part of it, no one knows who they are. Nobody cares. So no one's going to take responsibility for themselves, are they?
Well, a lot of people don't do so. I mean, look at all the crazy, mouthy people who think they know what they're talking about on any subject, whether it's politics or... I don't want to slam people, but most people sound like they're talking out their ass to me.
Yeah, and the more knowledge you have, you can see that for sure, can't you? Because you realise that they don't even know what they're talking about.
Pretty much, yeah.
But then you don't want to sound like you're egotistical, because then it can sound like you're being rude. But yeah, that's the truth, unfortunately, that most people don't even know what they're talking about, what they're saying, and it doesn't mean what they think it does in the first place. So, yeah.
Well, I do struggle with my ego a little bit. Sometimes I'll have discussions online, and part of me inside goes, do you know who the hell I am? Do you know how many people I talk to every week and give them truth bomb after truth bomb after truth bomb and how much respect I've got? But I hold back and I don't do that. But there's definitely a part of me that wants to be like, bitch, do you know who I am?
I know.
Ego, man. Let go of my ego.
Oh, I do. I don't do that. It's a natural human thing to want to, though.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with a lot of, ignorant people.
Well,
that's it.
I deal with that easily because I count myself among the ignorant people. We're far. Everyone, someone said, "Well, you're awake." I said, "I'm not awake. I might be aware, but if I was awake, we wouldn't be having this conversation because there'd be no need for it."
Need at least 3 more cups of coffee.
Well, there's a difference between becoming aware and getting out of the diapers, and I'm far from that.
I mean, the kind with the mushrooms in it.
That was good coffee.
Oh, but the thing is, though, if there was more awake people, then this conversation would be different, and there'd be more and more and more. Because you're not allowed to have this voice in the first place, they push people like us or people that have got a slightly different opinion, and they're looking at it as a total threat. That's because of the way they've set everything else up. So we're in a bit of a whammy there, aren't we? We need everybody to wake up. If everybody woke up, then they would realise what system they're in and what it's all about.
Why do you assume that there aren't a lot of people out there who are becoming aware? Why do you assume the worst? You don't control the information systems, and for that matter, why do you give a damn what Google or YouTube thinks? You should be deciding for yourself.
It's the people I care about. Like you, I care about the people.
I'm just pointing out that if you make up your mind by your own standard and carry on regardless of what others are doing, that is real change. When you get tied up in what others are doing, that's reactionary, and reactionary is a chess tactic. I'm going to do this to make them do that. That's not you doing your own thing. That is you being a puppet to someone else's actions. And these are important things to remember. If you make up your mind that you have the right to question things and no one can tell you different, then what other places do tends to matter less. Even though it sucks when things you've worked hard on are taken away, it doesn't diminish that you've already made up your mind. And that is true change. And that also is an example to other people. But I would put it to you, how do you know that all the censorship is not geared because there are infinitely more people thinking like we are than are not?
Yes. They're a bit quieter than... Oh, carry on, Patricia. You go, Patricia. Go for it.
Crow, I absolutely love you. you're saying about, I love Jason as well, and Karen. Sorry, I'm not favoritism here, but going back to the ego, like you said about babies, my children used to take the clothes off. They didn't know, and it sort of stems back from, if you think about Adam and Eve, and I'm not a religious person, but what it says that they
Right?
became, there was a point where they were naked and then they realized, but that's society. I know the
Yep.
Bible, it's like nothing else existed, it was just them two. That's why I realized that the Bible is just explaining how we are. The things in the Bible are like the things that, like ego. We all have these, sorry, but we're all capable of being narcissistic and all that, but just some are more prominent in some people than in other people. And just slightly digressing a bit, like about the emotions and worrying about what other people think of us. It's not important what other people think of us. We do have insecurities in our own body, but if you think about what we are who we are as a person, and sorry, I'm not very good at explaining myself, but
Well, I know exactly what you're getting at. If you do things that you don't have to regret, then you're doing the best you can for you, and what other people think about it matters less, because certainly that you tried to treat people with respect. You did all these things, but the children in Adam and Eve, it's exactly that. Why was there a point when all of a sudden what others thought of you or would see of you became the be all and end all? But you see, things changed as technology came. Think of all the media and how it gears. There's got to be the love story. There's got to be the emotional reaction. You've got to cry for Snow White when she dies. Snow White doesn't even exist, never has. It's a cartoon, for crying out loud. And yet a human mind has been.
What about Bambi then? Killing Bambi's mother, and we've got an orphan baby to start with. We're already upset the minute you start watching the movie.
That's when we lost our adult higher minds, because there is no Bambi, there is no Bambi's mother, and that is all a construct and doesn't exist in an actual world. In other words, we're leaving our true selves sitting in the theater seat and entering into a world of fantasy. That's what entertainment is. Go in and hold your mind. And if you can identify it, but it's not easy, is it? If you watch a sad movie, it's not easy not to cry, because we're human beings. But the point is not to recognize that there's no reality to it is half the problem. That's why people
But that's the kind of system we're in, isn't it? Because the system we're in isn't really reality. It's a made-up construction to keep the people controlled. It's not really reality. Like going to space isn't real, but they've made millions of people believe and buy NASA T-shirts, and
what hope does anyone have
away.
if you can't recognize that Bambi doesn't exist at all? It's a complete fantastic construct. What hope do you have of watching the evening news and not getting sucked into that fantasy?
Hey, by the way, do you guys have the company called Old Navy in England? Old Navy clothing?
I've heard of that. Maybe it is in England. I don't know.
Just curious because...
Oh, yeah, we do have shops here, I think. I've seen that label. I've seen it.
Because holy cow, they are so in bed with NASA. They have so much NASA crap there. Every time I go there, it seems like they have yet another section set up to whore themselves out to NASA.
Oh,
hey,
really?
do you know what I found today?
Do
you know what yesterday? do you know what I found yesterday in one of the NASA bubbles? A penguin.
Nice.
It's on Unscrambled. It's not just a penguin, but there's a penguin there.
Well, hey, I hate to cut this short, guys, but I've got to get some dinner going here. I've got responsibilities to meet. I'm about 15 minutes late, actually. I wasn't really paying attention to the time.
That's okay. I know you like to stick to your hour. Well, Jason, it's been really, really lovely getting to meet you at long last, because obviously Crow talks about you all the time. So it's been really nice actually having you on a hangout, and it's been a real pleasure to have you as well, Crow, and Patricia. It's really enjoyed today. It's gone really quickly. Too quickly.
All right, well, Patricia, good to see you again. And leader of the Sun and Moon, good to be back with you as well, Karen.
I must say, I feel very honoured. Last night, Coast to Coast, and today, Sun and Moon. So, what? Well, wow.
Jason had to use a cattle prod to get me onto Coast to Coast. He didn't have to do that for me to come here.
And that should tell you everything you need to know.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Crow. I love you lots.
All right. All the best to you guys. I got to get my move on. Thanks so much for having us back on, and I wish your new channel all the best.
Okay, is Crow going? Should we let Crow go, and then we'll say goodbye to Jason? Is that all right?
All right, I'm going to go. Jason, hold up your end.
Crow, thank you so much. Much love.
All right.
Mwah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on.
Bye, Patricia. Bye, Karen.
Bye-bye, darling. Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll just have a few minutes with you, Jason, because obviously we love talking to Crow, and Crow talks a lot, and he talks. We love it, but we didn't really much talk to you. We didn't much talk to you. Yeah, we don't know much about you, Jason.
Well, ask away if you have questions. I'm easy.
Do you live near Crow, or do you have to? You just do it on the internet when you do your podcasts and stuff?
Nope, I am originally from Pennsylvania. For the past 8 years, I've been living in Louisiana in a very beautiful town. Well, I was in the Baton Rouge area, which is kind of dumpy, but I moved to a beautiful town called Covington with my daughter and my girlfriend Rose, and it's right across the Lake Pontchartrain from New Orleans, which is my favorite place I've ever been to so far. And Crow is in Rhode Island, so the only time we've ever met in person, although that's about to change, was when we got together last October when I flew up to Rhode Island to shoot the interview sections for Shoot the Moon and get all of the 6 terabytes worth of data from his hard drives. We went through all of his hard drives and got as much as we could to go through to put the film together.
So how did you get into all this, Jason? Same sort of way we did, just suddenly just too aware and noticing that nothing adds up, or because it's a nice position that you are with Crow, isn't it? In what
that
you do.
happened organically. I've been really open-minded about everything since I was a child. Even as a child, I recognized that some things just weren't right, and I knew that governments were lying and things like that. Like, I knew that all through my teenage years, and I also always knew I was going to do something to try and help humanity. I just didn't know exactly how much it was, but I had a feeling it was going to tie into my music passions and all that. But I didn't start doing anything as far as getting out into the wide world and trying to change things until a few years ago. I started my Secrets of Saturn YouTube channel. Crow happened to be one of the people I had on there. He and I clicked really well. He wanted to do more with this podcast because it's easier with 2 people than 1. And we just had a great chemistry and just kind of built from there until we just decided to do that permanently, and I haven't done a Secrets of Saturn show in quite some time, although I do want to get back to them at some point just because there's some folks I wouldn't mind talking to that Crow doesn't really have an interest in.
So basically we're trying to get away from being plugged in, but we're plugged in really in another way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm actually a very highly technological person. That's kind of the difference between Crow and myself, because I'm a recording engineer. And now I'm a filmmaker too. So to me, technology is wonderful and beautiful, but it's a tool. You don't let it suck you in and control you. You use it to do what you want to express yourself. Making music and making film and all that, that's an art. And I use it as digital artistic creation tools, and I don't let it swallow me up as much as I can. One of the big differences between Crow and myself is I actually use a smartphone, and he refuses, because there's a lot of times I want to know information, or I might even start writing a show on a note in my iPhone. I might just start jotting ideas down because I'm always thinking, and I might see something that triggers something in my mind, like, oh, I should look that up later. And so I like having the internet at my fingertips. It's the one big difference between he and I.
Yeah, also for us though, our generation, because obviously I'm a bit older than you, the internet has come in, hasn't it? Whereas you, it's been there.
No, I'm 46, so I grew up. Yeah, I grew up in the 70s as a child, and with an Atari 2600, and then got an Atari computer in the very early 80s. So I've always liked computers, things like that, but I certainly didn't get onto the internet until Well, I didn't know what it was at first. I remember using a 300 baud modem I had borrowed from my friend around 1989-90 for my Atari computer, and I got onto the early bulletin board systems. And then college, when I was there, I remember us doing text-based internet, going to internet pages, but I didn't know what it was. And I remember someone saying, okay, write this down. We were in one of the computer rooms, HTTP:/ like all this. I didn't know what any of that meant. I didn't know what hypertext protocol, that stuff was. So I used it early on, but had no idea what I was using. I didn't really get into the internet until I don't know, 96, 97, 98, like when everybody really did and got AOL and all that other stuff.
I don't think, like in a way, like none of us particularly like money when you realise what it is, but and there are the bitcoins and all that kind of stuff, iron coins, whatever you want to call it. There's all that. I don't know if we're ever really going to get rid of our systems we're in. All I wish is that the people became the most important thing. The thing that's the most important now is money, not the people, not the hearts, not the feelings. I know that it'd be easy if we didn't have them, Patricia said, to deal with some of these things that we're in. And I know that they play on our feelings, but it would be better. Money was just the medium to buy something. Now you're only great if you've got £1 million and you can buy that Ferrari or something. That makes you a brilliant person, but it's not. That's the bit that I wish that we could turn around for everybody, that the people were more important.
Well, yeah, and that is something that people in the 60s did try to bring in. It just got co-opted and destroyed, really. I mean, they did try and do a turn away from mainstream society and more of a return to the more natural ways. But as soon as that started picking up, the bad guys immediately jumped on it and screwed it all up.
Yes, unfortunately. Anyway, what are you doing with Crow in the near future then?
Well, the biggest thing is this coming weekend, we're all flying up to New York City because we're doing Shoot the Moon NYC, and we're having our first little mini conference, and it's going to be Crow's first public appearance, in fact. So it's in a building in Midtown Manhattan, right near the subway station, I believe, if I remember correctly. Our friend Billy Ray Valentine, who does the Infinite Fringe on TFR podcast and all that, he wanted to do something since Mark Devlin was coming over from the UK, and he asked if I wanted to do a showing of Shoot the Moon. And I was like, sure, but if we're going to go through this much effort, why don't we just do an actual kind of conference, mini conference in one day? So I got our friend Wayne McCroy to come on board, and Billy Ray got his friend John Brisson. So for the whopping $30 that we charged, you get 3 speakers, the movie, and then a Q&A with both Crow and myself in person. So we tried to make it the best value we possibly could for people, and it sold out in like three-ish weeks or so.
Wow! Congratulations. How many people is it for?
Well, it's not a big room, so we cut it off at 80 tickets, and then the room occupancy is somewhere around 100. So obviously there's going to be more than just the 80 people coming who bought tickets, because there's going to be us and all that. So we're pushing our luck. We're getting real close to that limit. So we wanted to see how this one would go over, and like I said, it sold out real quick, so I assume there's an interest there. Right now, today, in fact, we're setting it up as a live stream. We found a service that we could do it inexpensively so that people can go on at will, and we're going to put links everywhere. It's going to be $10. You can tune into the live stream of the whole event. I have a friend who does professional videography for a living. He has his own company. He's doing it, so it's going to be a professional level shoot, and you'll be able to watch it in real time and then play it back. So anybody, wow. we did get people asking for tickets after the fact, and obviously we had to cut it off because of maximum occupancy laws, and you'll still be able to tune in live for $10. So we try to get that as cheap as possible too.
Congratulations then. So we're very honoured to have you actually on this podcast, because I know that Crow have been, it's September, he said, first week of September, the second week, and then we've got to here. But we still appreciate you coming on, really do. It's great that you come to our little channel.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I love getting out and meeting other people. I've been trying to ask around to see if anybody just wants me to come on too, because I obviously have different experiences from Crow, and I'm more than happy to share those with folks too if they're
Well,
interested.
we'd love to do that. What you mean? Have a hangout with you, just on a totally whatever you want. Yeah, we'd do that, Jason. We'd love that, wouldn't we, Patricia?
Yeah, well, with anybody, if you know other folks too, you can put the word out. I have done a few without Crow, although I enjoy doing them with him. It's just obviously we have less time to speak individually if we do it that way.
Patricia? She's there. She's taking her microphone.
Yeah. It's fantastic. The mini conference thing that you're doing. I know this sounds a silly question, but how would I, if I wanted to go on to the live stream and pay the $10 or 10 whatever it is, how would I do it? Where would I? Where do I get that
How do you get on?
information from?
We're trying to get that set up today because the conference is this weekend. So as soon as we get it all set up, I just signed up for the company that handles that, so that it's got somewhere to buffer through and all that without crashing. So as soon as we get the link set up,
so is it like a website or on your channel, or where would I actually get?
Yeah, it's going to be. I have a Vimeo account. That's where we have the film hosted. So we're going to run it through there, and then this service. I'm still learning it myself, to be honest with you. I know my friend who's running it has a broadcast hub with the multiple cameras. Like it's a mildly complicated setup, more than anything I've ever done. So he's kind of taking care of it for me. But the link will be available, and it's acting kind of like a pay-per-view kind of thing, I guess you could call it. So as soon as that all gets set up, hopefully today, we're going to put the links everywhere. If you guys use Facebook at all, you should be part of our Facebook Crrow777 study and discussion group. We're always having great chats in there, and we post everything that goes on there, and then Crow can put it out on Twitter and all that too. But he doesn't really engage at all. He just uses it as a information platform.
So basically, the Facebook page is one of the places you'll be able to find this information then.
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe Crow can get it added onto the main website page, or I was just thinking live on the air here, maybe we should cut a little promo commercial for it too, and just put it up on both our YouTube channels. We'll see what happens today after we get it all set up.
If you do a little promo, I will put it on Sun and Moon.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea once we get the thing active and people can buy what would you call it, like tickets ahead of time, pay-per-view tickets, so that we know that people are actually interested.
Get Crow or even Crow's got my email address, so you email me or he emails me the link to the promo, and I'll put it on Sun and Moon.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get all that set up.
Perfect. Jason, we've been going for an hour and a half. That's probably about a good time to stop. I so appreciate you coming on. I'm busy, but you sound a million times more busy than me.
Well, I'm always doing something, if that's what you mean.
Well, we can only wish you really good luck and whatever it is, best wishes, everything for this weekend. And like I said, I will put the link up. And Jason, in the future, I'd love you to come on a Sun and Moon hangout on your own then. On your own, solo. Sure.
By the way, do you know that they were trying to do, or they did have one, like a Crow meetup in the UK? Our friend Ian Mansfield was one of the people behind that. Did you hear anything about that?
No, I didn't. I must admit, Facebook is not my favorite place. I like the messenger side of it, because you can call people all around the world on it. I like that side, but YouTube, your Facebook, every time I went on there and put a couple of links, they do something to me. So I just got bored of going on there.
I'm not really big on it either. It's useful. That's all. It's a tool like everything else.
Same as for me as well. I think I don't know. I don't want, when you're putting so much of yourself out, I don't know if I want to put masses of me out on my Facebook profile either, if you understand what I mean.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't either. I literally use it to chit-chat with people and usually just discuss stuff about the podcast. Like, there's very little on my actual timeline other than what other people put there. But I use it to be able to interact on the Facebook group and the Crrow777 page and all that, too. It's again, it's a tool. I think that they're useful while we have access to them, but I don't make any. I have no illusions that they can rip that away any time, because you know how they are, where they'll claim some nonsense or another that you're bullying somebody or whatever nonsense they make up.
Yeah, whatever they want to call it, whatever they want to do to stop you doing anything. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yup.
Well, Jason, it's been a real pleasure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording on the computer, and we'll say goodbye. But we'll just say goodbye to you when we stop, because I know that Crow had to rush off, but we like to say goodbye after the recording's finished. But for the recording, thank you so much, Crow, mwah, Patricia, mwah, and Jason. Mwah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Patricia, do you want to say anything, Patricia?
No, I never want to speak again, Karen. Yeah, it's been great having you on. I love these sort of conversations. I just really, really love them. It's without sounding fake, I just love them. Sorry, and I love you, Jason. I hope everything goes okay for the weekend. And I'm just getting up the Facebook page so I can join that.
Yeah, go on there. Add me as a friend if you would like, and Rose, Lindsay Rose Bob Show, and I will. Let me see.
You won't mistake her. She's the cushion which says non-compliance.
Clear the fear.
Clear the fear. Anyway, should we do this when we finish recording, and then you can just talk to Patricia? But for the recording, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, Patricia. So, yeah. All right then. So we're just saying goodbye for the recording. Bye, everybody. Thanks everybody for listening. And yeah, obviously this will be premiered on Sun and Moon, and I will be in the chat room. Probably tomorrow I will do it. Tomorrow evening, UK time, which will be obviously today for them because I just watched it, but we're recording this the day before. But anyway, thanks everybody. See you soon. Much love to everyone.